So bass players, your role has the potential to make a band pummel to a disastrous catastrophe if you don't do your job correctly. So it's critical that you get it right. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the professional role of a bass player. So let's get to it. Hey, and welcome to Music Space, where we help working musicians just like you learn how to quickly and easily make a living with your craft. So if you're new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. So this is the next video in the series that we're doing on the job of all musicians in a band. And today we are talking about bass players. And bass players, honestly, you have one of the simplest jobs in the band. Now, notice I did say simple, not easy. But I think a lot of bass players make the job more complicated than it actually needs to be. A lot of bass players seem to have this mindset of trying to show up like Jocko or Victor Wooten or Marcus Miller, and not only does that make them overplay, but it makes them also neglect the fundamental purpose of the bass player. As a bass player, your fundamental purpose is to hold down the low end. That's it. It's not to play chords and licks. You're not the guitar player. It's to hold down that low end infrastructure for the band. And what do I mean by infrastructure? Well, if you think of a band as a house, you as the bass player, you are the concrete. You're like the concrete that everything is built on. And guess what? If that concrete foundation of that house is shaky, or it has cracks in it, or it's uneven, then at best you have an unstable and weak house. And at worst, your whole house will fall down. So as a bass player, it is absolutely crucial and critical that you hold down that fundamental purpose, that foundation, and you hold it down well. And one of the ways off top that you can do that is you have to understand music. And what I mean by this is you have to understand how certain elements in music contribute to things like groove and feel and timing. So for example, playing a funky bass line or, creating funk, or what we consider funk, is not solely something that comes from the bass. You take any funk era song, you take Brick House by the Commodores, or Get Down on It by Kool and the Gang, or Get Up by James Brown, and you listen to the bass lines and they're all very simple and repetitive. You don't hear a lot of licks and riffs and runs in the bass and things like that. It's holding down the foundation really well. But nevertheless, the song is still considered funky. And you may say, well, that's old songs. That's like 70s and 80s stuff. Well, you can take any modern funk song like that too. You can take a song like Uptown Funk and listen to the bass line in that, and you'll hear that it's very simple and repetitive, and it's doing the same thing over and over. The bass player has like one or two riffs in there that he does, and then that's it. So you as a bass player, you have to develop this realization about music and the elements of the music and how what you do contributes to it. And right before we get to the next thing, if you're getting value out of this video so far, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe button and the like button on this video. Go ahead and do that now. That lets me know that you appreciate this content, and it lets me know what type of content I should be making for you in the future. Now, also as a bass player, you have got to learn to lock with the drummer. It's almost as if bass players locking with drummers is like a forgotten concept these days. It's almost as if bass players and drummers musically fight on stage nowadays. And of course, this is not all the bass players' fault. Sometimes the drummers are the culprits in this as well. But this concept is really simple. The bass and the kick drum need to work in tandem. If there's a certain groove going on in the drums, or the drummer is creating a groove, then the bass needs to accompany that groove, not fight with it. And there are several ways that you can do that, which are sort of outside of the scope of this video, but at its core, it involves listening and understanding and playing off each other and dancing in step with the other instruments, and particularly the drums, and more specifically the kick drum. But as a bass player, you and the drums have to be like this. And another thing, as a bass player, you need to set the tone of your bass for the music you're playing. A lot of bass players set up their rigs and dial in the tone of their bass, and they have this nice, snappy, punchy sound that has a lot of highs in it and mids, sort of like a Jocko sound, and then they're playing Motown music. And a tone like that just doesn't work well for the foundation of a song like My Girl or You're All I Need to Get By. Those types of songs and Motown songs in general just don't have that sort of snappy, punchy, high-end, sort of mid-centric tone that a lot of bass players use nowadays. Now, of course, there are other considerations to keep in mind when you're dialing in your bass tone, like the room you're in and things like that. But in terms of providing a foundation, that concrete that we were talking about, you have to keep in mind the music that you're playing when you're adjusting the tones for your bass. And you know what else, bass players? Stop changing the root notes of the chords that are being played. I know playing the 5 over a 1 chord instead of going to the 1 is really cool. And I know that playing the 6 over a 2 chord is nice instead of actually playing the 2. But stop improvising those things so much and play the music how it goes. Professional bass players simply don't do that. Generally speaking, things like that should be rehearsed or planned so that, like, if I'm on keys and you decide to go to the 5 instead of the 1 where the 1 is supposed to be, I won't play that 1 in my chord so it sounds like something is clashing when we're playing together. And that's just the way that professional bass players do it. And that's the thing. What we're discussing here falls under the umbrella of being a professional bass player, and that's really important because it's the professional bass players who tend to make the most money. And that's what this channel is about. It's about helping musicians make more money. So if you want to level up as a bass player and be more professional, these are some things that you can do. But the question is for you. What are some things that you think bass players can be doing to up their game? Jump down in the comments and let me know. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that. And hey, did you know that there are a bunch of free resources that I've put together just for you? Everything from an ebook that will give you 10 tips on how to make more money as a musician, to contracts that you can use to book high-paying gigs, to set list templates, and much more. And again, it's all free, and you can find the links to download them in the description of this video. And listen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope that it was helpful for you and gave you some insight on being a professional bass player. And here are some other videos that you can check out right now.